Hello, I'm joined here today by Ruth Fox. Ruth is a mental health advocate and author of The Unseen Battle, a book which documents her struggle with depression and suicidal feelings. She's also an avid footballer. So Ruth, thanks for joining us.
Right, no worries.
So Ruth, can you tell us a bit about your story?
Yeah, so things started going downhill when I was about 14. I suffered with a minor injury at the same time that my sister went to university. Just struggled to deal with the emotions that brought out, and didn't really know how to deal with it. Not being able to play sport, particularly football, left me in a very stranded and isolated place. I was just crying for days and days on end, and just didn't know why. There was no reason that I was crying. Wasn't going to school, and I've always been academic, and I've always loved school in a weird way. So, like, just not being able to go to school to deal with people was really challenging. So, it was that point that my dad booked an emergency appointment with my doctor because obviously things weren't very good. Who then, diagnosed me with depression and put me on antidepressants. So I was put on fluoxetine, which is a selective serotonin reabsorption inhibitor. And I was also referred to child and adolescent mental health services. But the appointment was 6 to 9 months away, which didn't really help me at that time. I was able to go back to school. I was seeing the school nurse every day. I didn't go to lessons, but that gradually progressed, and I was able to attend one lesson, and then that progressed to becoming like a full-time student again. It was very challenging. I was really confused about what it was I was going through, because I'd never come across mental illness before. Never come across anything to do with mental. I thought something to do with anything to do with mental meant someone crazy locked away in hospital. I was really confused about what it was I was going through. That was my first experience of depression, and obviously, unfortunately, relapsed again when I was 17 in 2016. Just sent me down into a deeper, darker place. One which sent me, not really seeing a way out, being let down by professionals quite often, and feeling suicidal, self-harming, getting just to a really, really dark place. I was in hospital in November for 3 weeks, I've been on and off a lot of medications during this darker period. Decided to write about it about 2 months ago, and just to try and help someone out there going through the same thing.
Brilliant. When you say you're on depression, you're on fluoxetine, obviously, during the first bout. What was your experience with that? What was it like?
It was positive, to be honest. Like, normally with those sort of antidepressants, they often make you feel worse before they make you feel better. I didn't find this with fluoxetine when I first went on it when I was 14. It took about 3 weeks to get started, so I was just not the same. Just felt like really cryy and couldn't really get out of the house. I couldn't motivate myself, couldn't talk to people, but it can get worse. It was a positive experience. Like, I was on it for about a year and a month, and I actually took myself off it because I felt in a good place and didn't want to have to take medication to make me feel happy, and that's just how I felt at the time. But since then, unfortunately, I've had negative experiences with fluoxetine twice. Now, since then, it's sent me, unfortunately, like the first sort of 3-4 days that you're on it, because it's interrupting the chemical sort of balances in your head. Often it makes you feel worse. So, having taken fluoxetine, been prescribed it twice within the last sort of year and a bit, both of which have sent me to A&E because of self-harm or suicidal thoughts. So it's very difficult when you put faith in something that helped you to begin with, and then you think automatically it will help you again, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. So it's a difficult one.
Well, what do you think might be the reason for it not working this time? Are you having some sort of side effects to it this time?
Good question. I think when I was 14, I started on 10 milligrams, and when they, when I was prescribed it again when I was 17, they started me on 20. So I didn't really see the need for that. If it worked at a particular dosage, why would you then double it suddenly?
Well, it doesn't make sense, yeah.
Also, chemically and physically, I've obviously changed a lot since I was 14, so your body's going to react differently to things. Like, I mean, if you take any kind of medication, there's always a risk of side effects, regardless of whether you've taken it before or not. So, it might have just been that's just how my body reacted to it, and it might have worked after the initial 3-4 days. That might have just been something you had to live with, and then within 3 or 4 weeks, it might have had a really positive effect, but I couldn't deal with the negative effect that it had, so it wasn't safe for me to continue taking something that was making me feel that way.
Exactly, and if you're already feeling that way to begin with, you don't need the added anxiety of, potential side effects, nausea, lack of sleep. It's just going to exacerbate the symptoms and make it worse.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. It's a horrible place to be, because as I said, you've put faith in something that's helped you before, and then, suddenly you're left with you feel like you've been left with nothing, I guess.
Yeah. Are you on anything now?
Good question again. So in January, at the start of January, I was prescribed venlafaxine, which is another antidepressant.
How's it working out?
It's hard to know. To be honest, I've been since I was discharged from hospital in November, I had no care at all, no continual care. That's when I reached my lowest point after I was discharged. After I reached my lowest point, about 2 weeks after that, and after I'd recovered from it, I then rang my GP because I felt like I couldn't do this on my own, sort of thing. And that's when I got prescribed the medication over the phone with no ongoing support or anything. I was just prescribed medication on the phone, and that's it. They left me. So to be honest, I've kind of taken myself off it now, because it didn't feel like it was helping me much, and to be honest, quite frankly, I'm done with. I don't want to be all angry, but I am done with professional help.
Well, you've been quite vocal about this. I've been obviously monitoring your Twitter and things like that, and you regularly criticise professional help. What's been your experience of it that's led you to that conclusion?
First and foremost, I'm not, undermining some professionals, and I'm not bracketing, every single professional out there. It's just very hard for me to look beyond my own experiences. Exactly, so there's been dozens of occasions when I've been let down. For example, just when I was under the care of the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service when I was 17, they said they'd keep looking after me, or keep, continuing my treatment until I was left school in the summer. So I was still in full-time education, and therefore still classed as a child. But when I turned 18, so in April, obviously last year, they just dropped my care. I just received a letter in the post and said, we can't continue supporting you anymore, with no further referral to adult services. So normally legally when you turn 18, you should be referred to adult services, so you'll still be looked after by somebody. That just didn't happen in my case. I've never been referred to adult services, despite how low things have got. Just little things, people not ringing me back when they said they would. I recall at one time when things were really, really low. I was being seen by a crisis team every single day, and then on a Sunday they don't often see people because they're understaffed, and not many people like to work on a Sunday. So instead they just said that they would get someone to call me just to check I was okay and stuff, and obviously they just didn't call me, so I just felt very isolated and left on my own. When somebody's feeling like suicidal and in a really bad place, that just sends you to the edge, I guess. And that day, I felt like I was going to overdose on medication. I'm very aware of what I feel, and not just going to say that for the sake of it, because what's the point? So I didn't really know what to do, and someone told me to ring an ambulance, so I did. Never rang an ambulance before. I was very reticent about doing it. I didn't think it was the right thing. It felt wrong, but I did, because I didn't really see any other options. And they said they couldn't send anyone out, which is fully acceptable. obviously, it's like a Saturday night, so I appreciate that. But at the same time, where does that leave me?
Well, exactly, and the alternative probably is picking up drunks in the street and things like that. And it's like when you've got someone legitimately,
exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. And again, I'm not just going to say it for the sake of it. I appreciate the NHS's resources. I'm not just going to try and waste them. So yeah, they said they'd get a duty doctor to call me back in 2 hours just to check that I was okay and whatever. And yeah, they just didn't. So I was left sort of literally I was standing by a road for about an hour. Thoughts going through my head were, how fast are these cars driving? Would it kill me if I jumped in front of a car? Would the driver get injured too? Like, all those sort of questions were just going through my head for about an hour. And then after like the 2 hours had passed, I was like, do you know what? They've just not rang me back. Like, I knew I'd be let down, and I have been let down once again. So luckily, when I got home, I was fully like mentally and physically exhausted. So all I did when I got home was fall asleep. And when I woke up the next morning, I had a missed call from a private number, which I assume was the ambulance, at like 6 in the morning. So 8 hours after I'd initially called them, which is no help to anyone really. Anything could have happened in that time. So for me, I feel like a lack of professional help has kind of nearly cost me my life in that instance. And again, when I was discharged from hospital, the hospital wasn't particularly useful. Like, I was just put on medication, which I overdosed on, so I was taken off medication. No ongoing psychological support. When I was discharged from hospital in November, this is what I'm most, I think, angry about, and this is the bit where I was most at risk, I think, was so I moved back home from university because university said they didn't have the resources to support me because of my mental health. And it wasn't my choice, it was the university's choice. So I went back home, which wasn't ideal. I didn't want to go back home. I wouldn't have if I had any other choices, but I didn't. So I went back home. My care coordinator, who's the person you're given once you've been discharged from hospital to sort of look after you in going back into the community, she said that she'd booked me an appointment like about a week after I was discharged, which is the absolute maximum. So obviously they want to see you pretty much as soon as you're discharged to keep you safe and let you know how you're getting on and stuff. So she left it to the maximum day and just didn't tell me what time the appointment was. So I got a call on the Tuesday saying, "Oh, Ruth, why weren't you at your appointment?" And I said, "Look, you didn't even tell me what time it was." So she was like, "Okay, can you come tomorrow?" So I was like, "Yeah, I'll just cancel all my plans for tomorrow and come." Yeah, great. Which was fine. And she said it was 2:30. Like, genuinely, she said my appointment was at 2:30, and I got there about like 2:20. And she was like, "Oh, I'm surprised you even came." And I was like, "Why?" And she was like, "Oh, your appointment was at 2:00. And I was like, "Right, so you told me the wrong time." And then, I mean, my care coordinator was meant to help me get back into uni and integrate back into uni, but they didn't. Both university and the hospital refused to have a meeting altogether because neither of those two organisations can have external meetings. They have to have people come to them. And so I was in a situation where neither of organisation would leave their building to have an appointment with me. So I had to have my own appointment with the university and my own appointment with the hospital. Sort it out all on my own. Considering the headspace I'm in, it's not particularly easy. And then just had the university tell me that they didn't have the resources to support me. I then try and compare that to someone with a physical condition. They'd make all the necessary adjustments to make that person feel comfortable and continue to study, but because it was a mental illness, they just felt that they couldn't do that. Anyway, so my care coordinator was then off ill for 2 weeks. Again, not my problem, not my fault. Not her problem, not her fault, but again, one of her colleagues should really have touched base with me at least once. So I was getting concerned that I was in, gone from acute care and crisis care in hospital to absolutely nothing. So I rang up the community crisis team, which she worked for, and said, "Look, I've not had anything." Obviously, she's not going to tell me that she's off ill because she's not at work. And yeah, one of the first questions they ask is, "What's your address?" Because that's how they identify you, address, date of birth, and whatever. And I said, like, Bedfordshire. And they said, "We can't continue to support you because we're in Hertfordshire." and because I'd moved home from university, which is literally 20 miles away, because they've got different NHS funds, they couldn't look after me anymore, so I was just left with nothing. I rang the hospital and said, like, what do I do? And again, they said, there's nothing we can do. Go back to your GP. So I had to, again, it was my responsibility to get in touch with my GP, which I didn't feel like I had the capacity in myself to do that. So that's when I reached my lowest point. That's when I thought I'd take my own life. That's when I wrote my suicide letter. And it wasn't till 2 weeks after that, or even a couple of months after that, that I actually went to my GP and, again, just felt like people kind of chuck you medication and then just sort of leave you and hope that it works. Like, I've not had any reviews since then. So yeah, for me, professional help has not supported me in the way that I would have liked. And it, yeah, as I said, it nearly cost me my life. If I'd had that ongoing support when I was discharged from hospital, I wouldn't have reached that low point, I don't think. So I kind of, yeah, I do get angry at the services, and I don't have any trust or anything left for them, to be honest.
Well, I'm not surprised. That sounds like a ridiculous experience that you've just had. I mean, that's especially when someone's feeling suicidal. I mean, the minutes are crucial, let alone the hours that they were taking to call you back. So it's no wonder you've
exactly that.
Yeah, it's no wonder you reached the low point that you did. And obviously, you touched on just earlier how you went through the process of writing the suicide note. Can you tell us about that? Because obviously, you talk about that in the book, and I think it's quite an important thing for people to hear.
Yeah, of course. It was something that nobody else knew about until I wrote it down and decided to share it. To be honest, like, it just felt like the right thing to do at the time. I was in a place where I'd reached that moment where that was the only thing left for me to do. It wasn't the right thing to do, and I'm fully aware of that now, and I was fully aware of that then. But it wasn't that I wanted to die. It was that I wanted to not keep living. And it was the best option to end the pain that I was experiencing. As I said, I felt let down. Like, if even the professionals, you feel like even they can't help you, who can? Because anyone you open up to just says, oh, just go to the professionals, and what if you can't do that because you're just scared of being let down? So yeah, I kind of planned it all out. I planned how I would take my life, and then I wrote the letter, like, obviously 100% genuinely, and yeah, it was the right thing to do at the time. I think I'm a really unusual case because I wrote the letter and I planned it all, but I didn't actually even attempt suicide. So I've reached that point which a lot of people describe and a lot of people will resonate with, where you feel high and you feel adrenaline and you feel you shouldn't be suicidal because you're high and you're happy, but people don't understand that it's because you've gone beyond that point and you've actually made up your decision. And I think that's where things are really scary and really dangerous, because when you've been in a feeling of depression for so long, and suddenly you feel really high, people around you are like, oh, Ruth's suddenly feeling better, like she's recovered and stuff, even though it's like only one day, and that's because that's what they want to see and that's what they hope. But reality of it, in a lot of people's cases, and certainly in my case, was because it's the fact that I'd actually made up the decision and made up my mind that I was going to end my life, and therefore I was actually really happy and I was actually really relieved. So I think that's one of the messages that I try to promote is, you can't, and I've learned this, you can't take your own life if you're depressed, because you don't have the motivation and you don't have the energy to do it, and you need to have that moment of intense feeling which you don't have if you're really, really depressed. And I think that's one of the things that makes medication like fluoxetine send you suicidal, and so many people take their own lives within a few days of taking new antidepressants, because it basically it gives you a feeling so you're still depressed and you'll still feel that way, but it gives you, your body is able to go and do the act and go and take your own life. So that's why you've got to be so wary with people who appear to be really high and appear to be relaxed and appear to be relieved, and that could be purely because of the fact that they've actually made up their mind and come to that unfortunate position where that's the only option they have. So So for me, I've reached that point, and I felt that elation and that high because that's truly what I thought I was going to do. But luckily for me, I didn't even get to the point of attempting suicide, and luckily for me, my chosen method would have been jumping in front of a train. So even if I'd attempted it, it's 98% chance it would have happened, and that I wouldn't have survived that.
So what stopped you?
Sorry.
What stopped you?
It's a difficult one, but basically, so I wrote the note that night, and I planned it all that night, and the following morning, I decided to. I knew that as soon as I got out of bed that day, I'm a very all or nothing kind of person. So if I'd gotten out of bed, that means I would have done it. So it was a case of staying put, staying where I was until I was ready to do it, basically. And the longer I stayed there, the longer I was living, basically. And yeah, sort of surprisingly, a knock at the door came, and it was just my mum asking me if I wanted a coffee. And to be honest, it was just that moment of distraction. A lot of people talk about it when they're about to self-harm or got suicidal, really strong suicidal thoughts, and all it takes is that tiny distraction. That's why people call to Samaritans. That's why people call a friend, or that's why people, have a particular sort of crisis plan that they do, which might not be just, going to hospital or whatever, but more of a distraction, because I think it's 12 minutes is what it takes. Once you've gotten through those 12 minutes of, that intense feeling, it will subside. So yeah, my mum asked if I wanted a coffee, and I think it was a mixture of it being a distraction, but also the fact that, someone who cared, and that kind of just proved that, even if it was a tiny thing and she had no idea what I was going through, it kind of just, still made me feel that I was loved, even if it was in a tiny way. And luckily for me, that took me out of that really intense moment. And and luckily for me, the letter wasn't used, and I was able to, finally recover from that and get over it, but kind of on my own. And it took a lot of time, but kind of reaching that point, anything from there is a bonus, and is a positive. I think. The aim is just to at least stop somebody from reaching that point or further.
Yeah. Well, obviously, it seems like you're in a much better place now. Obviously, depression is a long-term illness. It has its ups and downs, but, you're not in that suicidal place anymore, so that's fantastic. What would you say, has been the key to your recovery? You say you're feeling much sort of better now. What's changed from then to now?
That's a good question. Again, I don't think it's one individual thing. I think there's two places that, for me, I can be in life, or anyone can be in life. There's feeling positively about most things, or there's feeling negatively about pretty much everything. And I think once you've thought about one thing positively, you cross over into the other sort of mindset. I think talking to people has been the saviour for me. Even if there's people that can't do anything, or they feel like they're not doing anything, and you feel like they're not doing anything. Talking is something that really, really helps, and unloading to people is like something that has been really beneficial to me and continues to be beneficial to me. I think having belief. It's a change of mindset, but change of mindset isn't the thing that made me recover. It's just an outcome of recovering. Because if it was a change of mindset, that makes it sound easy, and it makes it sound like that's all I did, is just think positively about everything, and then I was well again. That's not the case. I think medication could have possibly played a part, but again, I'm not 100% certain about that, and it's certainly not professional help. So for me, I think also with some real intense periods of dark depression from when I was 17 to nearly 19. All bad things come to an end, and sometimes, in my case especially, it was just a case of sitting with the feelings and embracing and accepting. That's how I felt, and that's what I was going through, and being able to try and get on with everyday life with with depression. Accepting that that's just something that I do have to suffer with and continue to, and possibly will continue to in the future. I think it's about embracing that and accepting that, and in turn that will cause a change of mindset, which makes you think about life differently. But as I said, that's not what brought me out of that dark place. But sometimes it's a case of waiting, and it will always come good in the end.
So taking your experience as an example for other people, what advice would you give for anyone else that might be going through a similar thing?
Firstly, I'd just say, like, reach out, talk to people. It doesn't have to be professional. Like, talk to someone that you trust and someone that you know will be by your side whenever you need it. It might be a friend, it might be a teacher, it might be family, like, whoever it is, just reach out. I think also it will make you stronger in the long run. I think it makes you kind of feel unstoppable in anything else you do, because for me, like, if I know I've got through that, I feel like I can get through anything, and any challenge that anyone ever sets me now, I'm like, yeah, of course I'll do it. And I know that I will, because I've just got that mental strength that I've developed over the years. I think also, like, don't put pressure on yourself. It's, as I've said, like, it is a really, really difficult thing and affects your daily life, so don't put pressure on yourself. If all you've done during the day is get up and go to the toilet or have a shower, that is an achievement sometimes, like, and it's okay to accept that. And you know, sometimes staying at home or staying in bed is the safest place for you to be. Then so be it. Like, that's okay. It's accepting that, you know, some days are more difficult than others, and also, like, it doesn't make you any weaker. It doesn't change who you are. It doesn't define you. All I'd say is don't be afraid to talk about it. Don't be afraid to speak out, and it will get better.
Exactly, and there's a number of websites that people can go to. There's, you know, Young Minds, Papyrus, a lot of suicide prevention charities for younger people and things like that. So there's if you don't want to speak to your parents or anything like that, there's loads of options you can explore anonymously. Great stuff. Well, thanks, Ruth. Thanks a lot for coming on. Finally, just tell us a bit about your book and where people can go to find it.
So it's an ebook at the moment. It's just available on Amazon. It's called The Unseen Battle. One young footballer's struggle off the pitch, and if you watch this space, there may be you know, something coming up in the future where people might be able to get their hands on it more easily. Brilliant. But at this moment in time, it's an ebook which is available on Amazon.
Fantastic. So absolutely check that out, guys. Well, thanks a lot, Ruth. It's been great speaking to you, and take care.
No worries. Thank you very much.